of talking. So I'm going to share the screen. So basically, this is just a bit of information about me. I have done the Masters in Sports and Exercise Science at the University of Birmingham, and currently I'm reading a PhD in Sports Nutrition. So why is sports nutrition important? Some people might think that exercise is enough, but if you don't have the right nutrition, performance might be not that good. All right, so we need the right nutrition to fuel for our body, for the performance. All right. For example, if we are dehydrated, the muscles won't have enough oxygen, so we won't be performing as we should be. If done incorrectly, it can hinder training and impair performance. So each athlete will have different dietary requirements. For example, when I'm doing personal diet plans, for each individual, I do it according to his activity level. I cannot just plan one nutrition plan for everyone. It depends on the type of sports that the persons are playing, the training intensity, the age, the sex, the body composition, and the environment for training and competition. The environment is important because if you're training in hot, humid environments, you need different requirements for the body. So this is basically the food pyramid, which is not the usual Mediterranean diet. The basis should be, at the base of the pyramid should be fruits and vegetables. Then on top of it, we have starchy carbs, and that will increase according to the intensity of the exercise. Suppose you have a day where you're not doing a lot of training, so you base your carbs on veg and fruit, and maybe a small portion of starchy carbs. But if you have long hours of training, you would need more starchy carbs. Then you should include protein, a portion of protein, then I will explain about protein, some fats and dairy, and then occasionally we can have some sweets or those things that shouldn't be consumed on a daily basis. So the question usually would be what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat. So these are the carbohydrates. These are sugars and starches, are the sources of energy. So we need them to have enough energy to perform our type of sports. It is important for the working muscle. So while the muscle is working, it needs constant sugars to work properly. Carb loading, so during the period before training, we need to eat a bit more carbs, but not too much. Some people and some athletes tell me I ate a lot of carbohydrates because I have an event coming. Sometimes if you have too much carbohydrates, it will hinder the performance, all right? So we need to increase them gradually. Go high carb the day before or on competition day, all right? You don't need to start eating a lot of carbs from days before. So this is the difference between simple carbs and complex carbs. Simple carbs are sugars which are directed into the blood immediately. So they raise the blood sugar levels immediately. So if you need sugars at an instant, you need to take the simple carbs. If you're going to take complex carbs, you're going to include them with a meal. Not, for example, simple carbs, you're going to take them with you on the bike. If you're doing training and you need sugar at an instant. If you're taking complex carbohydrates, you have to include them with a meal because they take a bit more time to digest. All right, they will still be changed into sugars, but they will take more time. And some examples of simple carbs are drinks with sugars, cakes, cereals, soda, white pasta, because the brown pasta has fiber in it, so it will take more time to go into the blood, and candy and chocolate. Complex carbs, we have beans, rice, whole wheat bread, chickpeas, white flour, bananas, sweet potato, and so much more. Protein, these are the amino acids which we need so that we can build muscle or maintain our amount of muscle. And together with carbs, it helps boost the rate of recovery after exercise. So as soon as we finish exercise, we need to have a meal that contains protein and carbs. Otherwise, muscle can be burned. And if you burn muscle, you increase fat and you will lose strength. So these are some examples of protein. That is what you're seeing on the left-hand side. The amounts that you have written underneath it is how much protein you have for every 100 grams that you consume. For example, if you take 100 grams chicken breast, it has 23 grams of protein. And in one meal, you don't need to take more than 30 grams of protein. If you take much more, that is wasted. So it's wasted money, it's wasted food, which might also be increasing your calories. Cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, those are all protein sources which are really good. And for those who are vegan, there are also some good choices like eggs, Greek yogurt, beans, cauliflower, broccoli. But as you can see, if you compare them together, the vegan sources are much less in protein than the other sources. So this is from a paper, different papers actually, how much protein you need to include. So for daily intake, you need to take between 1.2 and 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, all right? Those A, B, and C are for individuals who weigh 60 kilograms, 80 kilograms, and 100 kilograms. So for daily intake, a person who weighs 96 kilograms 80 kilograms needs to take between 96 and 160 grams of protein. Someone who is 60 kilograms of weight needs to take between 72 and 120 grams of protein. Then for fat loss, you need to increase protein. If you're eating less calories, you need to increase the protein. Otherwise, you may risk losing the muscle. And if you lose muscle, you'll be gaining more weight, actually, after you lose the weight. So let's take an example. An individual who is doing a diet for fat loss and who weighs 60 kilograms, he needs to take between 108 and 162 grams of protein per day. Someone who is doing exercise, so post-exercise, after the exercise, all that you need to take is between 24 and 40 grams of protein, not more than that. For example, if you take a protein shake, it will have around 28 grams of protein, and that would be enough. At bedtime for recovery, you would need between 28 and 40 grams of protein. And in case of injury, since you're not doing much training, you need to reduce the amount of protein. So for a person of 60 kilograms, they will be taking between 96 and 150 grams of protein. All right, so that's basically from different papers and different requirements. So fats, they need to be between 25 and 30% of our daily intake. Fats, we don't need to take a lot when you're training a lot, because some people might think that because healthy fats are important for our diets, they start taking a lot. And if, for example, you do some exercise, and after the exercise you consume fats, high fats I'm mentioning, that will minimize your carbohydrate intake by the body. So after training, for example, you need to include a meal which contains carbs and protein and is low in fats. All right? So when you're training a lot, you don't need to take a lot of fats. This I wanted to include because it's very important. It's not just for those people who train, but for everyone. When you're looking at a product, check the labels. Because, for example, this one has trans fats 0 grams, so the label is telling you that it doesn't have bad fats. Trans fats are fats which will create fats inside your veins. So if you have to a stroke. All right, so trans fats are very dangerous. That label is saying that you have 0 grams of trans fats, but in the ingredients, you have partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. If you start checking that when you go to the supermarket, you realize how much products contain that ingredient, and that is very harmful. All right, so we try to avoid it. Then you also have hydrogenated oils. From the wording, you might think that partially would be less dangerous than hydrogenated, but in fact, it's the other way around. All right? And I'm going to explain it by this graph. If you look at this graph, partial hydrogenated is really bad. The graph is really steep. But fully hydrogenated is as bad as saturated fats. Saturated fats are fats found in butter, red meats, for example. So those are not really that dangerous, but trans fats are best avoided. All right? Trans fats, in fact, clog arteries by increasing LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, decreases the HDL, which is the good cholesterol, increases triglycerides. If you have a blood test at home, you can check it, you have triglycerides there. Those are fat particles inside your veins. So if you have a lot of those, that is quite dangerous. So you need that to be low, all right? And increases the risk of heart attack. So I'm going to give you some examples of what you can take for breakfast, snacks, lunch, and dinner. So ideally for breakfast, you would take toast. It depends on how much training you're doing. If you're doing a lot of training, you can take up to 2 slices of toast. You can include eggs, avocado, and cottage cheese, for example. You can take oats in the form of porridge and include some protein. Then for lunch, you need a portion of starchy carbs, for example, rice, an amount of protein like beef or chicken, or if you're vegan, you include beans and vegetables. The second example is frittata with eggs and vegetables. And the last one is chicken with vegetables. All right, just some options for you to have some ideas. As snacks, because many people ask me about this, you can do protein balls, and you can even take them if you're on a bike, for example. Those are really handy to take. With oats, protein, I don't suggest for you to include a lot of fats like peanut butter. All right, so I would include protein, oats, and some honey, for example. All right, because you have a combination of glucose and fructose, which will help in performance. It will increase energy. Then another snack is rice cake with peanut butter and strawberries or banana, and yogurt with strawberries. And I would add a bit of protein too. For dinner is the same as lunch, but if you're not training again, I would reduce the amount of starchy carbs. If you're training again in the evening, you need to again include starchy carbs like rice, potato, pasta. The first example is sweet potatoes with meat. The second one is chicken and veg. And the third one is for those who are vegan, soup including lentils and beans. So I'm going to give you examples what you need to take on training days. The first one is for a person who is doing easy training and what he or she should include onto the plate. So half of the plate should be vegetables and fruit. 1/4 of the plate should be protein, and I'm giving you some examples: poultry, beef, fish, eggs, low-fat dairy, soy, tempeh, and legumes. And then a small portion of pasta, rice, potatoes, cereals, bread, or legumes, which are starchy carbs. As you increase training, those will be changing. For example, this is moderate training. For moderate training, we decreased a bit the amount of fruit and vegetables, but we increased the starchy carbs, which are the pasta, rice, potatoes, cereals, breads, and legumes. We increased a bit the fats, and we kept the protein portion the same. If you notice in these examples, the protein portion is always the same because we don't need to exaggerate with the amount of protein. For heart training, protein again is the same, 1/4 of the plate. We reduce a bit the fruit and the vegetables, and then we increase the starchy carbs. All right, in this case, bread, pasta, etc. We can increase a bit the fats now, up to 2 tablespoons, and fats. The best type of fats are avocado, oils, nuts, seeds, and cheese, just a little bit. Then on competition day, in the day before the competition, eat food which is higher in carbs, all right? Include carbs with every meal, if you have a competition. Reduce the amount of fats so that your body can absorb carbohydrates better. Include protein with every meal, and increase the water intake up to 3 liters. From research, they found that if you take the 2 weeks before competition and you start increasing water intake gradually, your body will learn how to hold more water. So, for example, if you're training in a hot, humid environment, you'll get less dehydrated easily. Prepare cold drinks, because if you take cold drinks, you're going to be tired less in a short period of time. And in drinks, you need to include electrolytes, all right? Because you need sodium, especially for those people who sweat a lot. You need to replace that sodium by taking electrolytes. And prepare some energy bars for competition day. During competition day, just a bit before starting the competition, in the morning, you need to take a good breakfast, which is rich in carbs and protein, and drink 500 milliliters 2 hours before exercise. So you don't need to drink a lot. Otherwise, you might risk ending up with a stitch. Now, this is very important. Check the color of the urine. If your urine is very dark, that means that you're already dehydrated. The color of the urine should be close to the color of water. So light, pale yellow, it should be. In hot, humid environments, add some electrolytes, this I already mentioned. Take energy snacks with you and weigh yourself. I'm going to explain why it is important to weigh yourself. So during competition day, take 500 milliliters of cold water 15 minutes before the exercise. In a hot, humid environment, when possible, you need to take between 120 and 180 of fluid, because it shouldn't be just water. It has to have electrolytes with it every 15 to 20 minutes. So during hot, humid environment, don't spend 1 hour doing exercise without drinking anything, because you'll end up with a headache or fainting. All right, so it's very important. If training is longer than 60 minutes, some glucose in the form of drinks, gels, energy bars, or snacks is recommended. One thing that I want to point out is not to start taking gels before 1 hour into the exercise. If you take too much carbohydrates, too much sugars, you will slow down in exercise performance. All right, so you need to increase gradually. Ideally, as soon as you pass 75 minutes into your training, that is the point when you start taking some source of sugars, and you start increasing gradually. So, competition day, what should you do after? So as soon as the exercise has finished, weigh yourself again. 1 kilo of weight lost equals 1 liter of fluid lost. So suppose you weigh 70 kilograms. After training, you weigh yourself and you're now 69 kilograms. So that means you have lost 1 liter of fluid, not of fat. If you lost 1 liter of fluid, you need to replace by 1.5 liters. So if you're now 69 kilograms, because you lost 1 liter of fluid, you should take at least 1.5 liters of a hydration drink. The best choices, according to research, are chocolate milk and isotonic drink. And they have also noted that chocolate milk is even better than an isotonic drink because chocolate milk has protein in it, so you'll be giving your muscles a good recovery. Eat a carbohydrate and protein-rich snacks, and I'm giving you some examples. So after training, some examples are yogurt and fruit, because that is carbs and protein, fruit and vegetable smoothie with some milk for added protein, turkey or cottage cheese sandwich, and again, you need to check the urine color. Make sure it is pale yellow. If it is still dark, that means that you need to drink more. Here again, I'm giving some examples of what you should take. If the exercise lasts more than 60 minutes, you need some sources of sugar like oat bars and chocolate or an electrolyte drink. And I'm going to mention a bit about the importance of water. So 70% of our body is water, so that shows you how important it is to drink. A loss of 10% of that body water increases health risk. So functions of water in the body for cooling your body, it will be evaporated from the body through sweat. It provides nutrients to muscle cells, eliminates waste substances, lubricates joints, and regulating the electrolytes in the blood. So these are all taken from research. If your dehydration level is greater than 2% of your body weight, all right, so that would be 1.4 kilograms of sweat lost for a 70 kilogram athlete, it will impair exercise performance. Average sweat lost considered to be between 500 milliliters and 2 liters per hour. Then again, some people may sweat less or more. Performance losses can occur after 60 to 90 minutes of exercise, and if the hydration level is greater than 4% of body weight, you can end up with heat illness, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, and possibly death. I hope not, but it is possible if you're too much dehydrated. Adapting optimal levels of prehydration is very important. So this is just to show you how important it is not to end up with dehydration. 1 liter of sweat loss during exercise in a dehydrated state will increase your heart rate by 8 beats per minute. That means it will tire you much more easily. And the cardiac output, which means how much the heart pumps blood every minute, will reduce by 1 liter per minute. That means you're receiving less oxygen because the blood carries oxygen with it, and your muscles are not receiving enough blood. So that means they are being dehydrated also. These are some types of energy drinks that you can choose. If you're not going to do a very long duration exercise, you should choose one which has 1 to 3% of sugars within it. If you're going for an exercise which will be for about 1 hour, for example, you need to take a drink which is between 6 to 8% of sugars. And if you're going to do an exercise for more than 2 hours, you need to take a drink, an energy drink, which is with 10% sugars in it. So I think this will interest you a lot because I have tested it with my athletes too, and it works. They gave them different drinks. So they had these athletes and gave them different drinks. One of these drinks had just glucose. So in the graph, you're seeing them with a blank square, the white ones. Then you have glucose and fructose. So there were others that gave them a drink with 1.2 grams of glucose and 0.6 grams of fructose. That is 2:1 as ratio of fructose to glucose. And then there were others to whom they gave glucose and sucrose drink. If you take a look at this graph, those that took glucose and fructose with 2:1, 2 glucose and 1 fructose, their performance was much better. Why? Because if you read the left-hand side of the graph, exogenous carbohydrates means how well your body uses carbohydrates. So if you take a drink which is 2:1 glucose to fructose, you will increase your performance. So when choosing an energy drink or when choosing these gels, there are most of them which is just sugars, glucose. But there are some of them which the ratio of glucose to fructose is 2:1. Those would be the best choice of energy gels. Then this is just to show you that from that paper, it is telling you that if you choose fat-free milk after exercise, that would be the best choice of recovery drink. But unfortunately for some people, milk is not really good because they are intolerant for it. So it would be best to include a sports drink in that case. Then this is just a paper to show you from here that from the study, milk is at least comparable and often outperforms most commercially available recovery drinks. All right? So it confirms what I was saying previously. That's all. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Thank you, Rom. Thank you. We appreciate a lot. Guys, in the meantime, feel free to either unmute yourself. You are free to unmute yourself at the moment, or send your queries via the chat. We have received previously before the start of the webinar itself, and I would like to pose a couple of them to Romi. So the first one is, will carbohydrates taken in the evening make you fat?
This is a very common question, Caroline, that they ask me. If you have to take, for example, if you require 1,800 calories and you need, for example, 100 grams of carbohydrates, if you're going to take them in the morning or in the evening and you're going to keep 1,800, you're not going to get fat. So what I suggest is this, that if, for example, you're training in the evening, I would include the carbohydrates a bit before exercise, so you'll have enough energy for training, and then a bit after, so that after the exercise, you will be replenishing your body with the amount of energy that you have lost.
Thank you. Thank you, Ram. Can I pose another question in the meantime? Someone sent us, is it true that if protein is not taken immediately after lifting weights, you will risk muscle loss or no further growth?
This is a very common question too. No, you don't have to take protein immediately. If you take it up to 4 hours after training, I advise not to leave more than that. So just as long as you replace, if you do a session at the gym, just as long as you take protein in a time window of 4 hours, that is enough. So